You can be forgiven if you've never heard of the 1958 syndicated television show Decoy. It ran for just one season and starred Beverly Garland as New York City policewoman Casey Jones. Decoy was directly inspired by Dragnet, and its roots are obvious with its brassy opening score, its voiceover narration, and its procedural police work which moved across authentic city locations to investigate the crime of the week. But Decoy was groundbreaking because it directed its focus on the work of policewomen, specifically one policewoman, Casey Jones. It was the first television program to feature a female cop in any capacity, let alone lead protagonist. And it was the first show to film entirely on location in New York City. Each week, Officer Jones went undercover to root out killers, deadbeat dads, drug dealers, rapists, and a whole host of criminal types.
We're New York's finest. We're policewomen.
Garland's policewoman was a strictly by-the-book officer whose dedication to the job, much like Joe Friday, came at the sacrifice of any personal life. And from the very first episode, Stranglehold, which aired on October 14, 1957, Decoy was committed to giving viewers across the country a street-level view of late 1950s New York City. The show's low budget encouraged a more guerrilla style of street filmmaking that allowed the authentic people and places to be captured in an almost documentary film style. In Beverly Garland, Her Life and Career, Garland described a process where the main directorial strategy was to avoid drawing attention to the camera, so passers-by wouldn't look into the lens and ruin the take. In Stranglehold, Casey moves into a seedy rooming house in an effort to befriend a woman named Molly, whose former boyfriend is a suspect in a jewelry heist. The low-budget technique allowed director Donald Medford to get street scenes of Lever House, Colony Records, and an overall general vibe of 1957 New York City. We get to follow Molly on her evening stroll as she goes along Broadway and 47th Street. We get to be there in the crowds and underneath the glowing theater marquees. We get to linger under the giant glittering display for Elia Kazan's Baby Doll. It's Saturday night, it's 1957, and we get to mingle out in the crowd. In the very next episode, The Red Clown, Casey searches for a young girl who has taken the subway alone from her home in Queens to Manhattan to look for her father, a painter, who has abandoned the family for an artist's life in Greenwich Village. While some later episodes will solely use city exteriors as establishing shots or to bridge scenes, The Red Clown is almost entirely filmed on the city streets. The tree-lined avenues of Queens, transit stations, and McDougal Street in Greenwich Village. We see places like the still operating Cafe Reggio and its neighboring shops and restaurants. In The Glass Necklace, Casey poses as a wealthy socialite with an expensive jewelry collection to lure a successful burglar into a trap. We get a montage of the city's in spots, nightclubs, jazz clubs, and lounges. Late nights out for the sophisticated set, dining, drinks, jazz, 52nd Street, then over to Greenwich Village, and on until the early morning hours. Showplace, Decoy's 21st episode, Casey pretends to be a nightclub entertainer in order to investigate a murder, and the show gives us some great time capsule shots of Broadway and Times Square, like the entrance to the old Sheraton Astor Hotel, which was demolished in 1967. Decoy, of course, was a product of its time, and some of the plots were a bit out there. For example, episode 24, Saturday Lost, revolves around a murder investigation that ends with Casey arresting a young woman who has lost her memory after an all-night pot party. In an attempt to help the girl recall the events of that lost Saturday, she and Casey emerge from the 116th Street Columbia University station and visit a series of local college bars. The show's final episode, The Lost Ones, aired on July 8, 1958. Casey is in the Bronx to visit a girl she arrested but later befriended. That visit takes a dangerous turn when she discovers the girl's brutal father murdered. Here is a far cry from the elegant nightclubs, the sophisticated shops and theaters of earlier episodes. This is the world of small garden apartments, teen clubs, and corner greasy spoons, and threats of youth violence after dark. Decoy was canceled after only one season, and it's a shame really, because Beverly Garland's portrayal of dedicated career woman Casey Jones, with her intelligence, confidence, and professional integrity, was really ahead of its time. But its 36 episodes recorded a piece of the history of a city in transition. Decoy's exploration of everyday crime acted out away from the studio backlot was one of the few 1950s television shows that takes some of the rose-colored tint off an overly idealized era. Its guerrilla style of camera work left a document of an almost lost New York that in some places still lingers, just under the surface. There are 8 million stories in the cinema cities. This has been one. Hey fellow cinema travelers, let me know in the comments if you've got stories about some of the places featured in Decoy, or if I missed or messed up something. I'll see you in the next city.